What's going on, everybody? How's it going? Well, I had to make a cup of coffee before I started this video. I know I'm not using my normal dad to the bone mug, but these ones are insulated. They were made by Camelback and they're pretty good. So anyway, this video is about pulling the alternator on my 5.9 mechanical Cummins in my school bus. I already did all the work, but I'm going to walk you through a couple things here in a second. As you can see, I have the alternator right here on my leg, and it is smoked for sure. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and show you a couple of things about how these come out, where they're placed, and some of the things you have to remove, and some of the tools you need for stuff like this. And then on top of that, make sure you get yourself some good quality gloves. Okay, these are mechanic gloves. There's the brand I use right there. I know it's probably backwards for you guys, who knows. Here's the other glove right here. I don't know if this is going to help you be able to read it a little bit better, but that's the brand of the glove that I use, just to keep the grease off my hands. So you're going to want those. But back to the alternator here for a second. This thing was easy to pull, but at the same time kind of difficult. The main reason why, I put my other glove on so that I can rotate this around real quick and show you, is down here, this is the lower mount. Okay, now this is a housing. It's an aluminum housing, so you got to be careful of those threads when you go to torque them back down, because you can strip them on the new alternator. But one of the reasons that makes these kind of a pain, if you've ever done an alternator in any type of vehicle, is this sandwich clip right here. You've got to wedge that in place and rock it just right to get it in. Now, my bus had this GM one-wire style alternator. So the battery power went here and the ground went there. So I'm gonna get a new one of these, mostly because this was in my bus. So I figured I'd run with it, just because I don't know why they switched from the other one that had a diode circuit on it. It was another wire that plugs into the back, and I'll show you that here in a second. But I figured I'd get this out of the way. You can see it is in fact really hideous looking. It's really dirty. I don't know how old this thing is, but it doesn't work anymore. So now I got to go buy a new one of these, which is around like 300 bucks. But at least these have a core fee, so I'll get some of the money back. But as for tools that you're gonna need, I'll tell you right now, a lot of people talk badly about Harbor Freight. I personally like it. I have one of their toolkits. It's the suitcase toolkit. It's like the second biggest one, and they really come in handy. So you're gonna need a 7/16. You're gonna want the deep socket, and the main reason why you're gonna want the deep socket is because these hose clamps right here, okay? As you can see, they tighten down quite a bit, and the deep socket gets on there. You can just ratchet them off really easily. This happens to be the air intake line from the air filter. Now, these can be a pain in the butt, so once I get done going through the tools, I'll go ahead and show you a little trick that works for air hoses like these and coolant lines as well, okay? So this one right here, 7/16 deep socket on a 1/4 inch drive. You're also, in my case, I needed a 3/4 inch deep socket and a 3/4 inch shallow socket to be able to undo the bolts on this thing, and the bolts are kind of a pain in the butt. Okay, so like I said, Harbor Freight comes in handy for a couple of things. On top of that, you're really gonna wanna go get your mechanics towels. These are also a Harbor Freight item. When we get to the engine, I'll show you why you wanna get these, aside from washing off and, you know, getting oil and grease and stuff off your hands. These are great dust covers, and you'll see what I mean here in a second. So you're also gonna need your wrenches, 7/16 right here, and then, you know, these come in the kit. And then also you're gonna need a 3/8 depending on your alternator. Mine took a 3/8, but you're gonna need your wrenches to be able to loosen up the screws on the back of the alternator. One of them is a locking nut and the other one's an actual threaded bolt. And then one of the most important things you're gonna need is a torque wrench for when you go to put this back on, because they require torque specifications. If you've never used a torque wrench before, there's a little knob right here. You loosen it up. There's a bunch of numbers on the dial right there, and this handle twists and you match your torque, okay? So if you're going to 100 pounds, you spin this to this line right here, matches the 100, and if you got to go to 105, you twist the numbers to 5 on that center line right there, and then tighten this down, and that'll lock your torque. This has a pivot on it, so it's gonna click when it's torqued to what it needs to be, okay? So you're definitely gonna need a torque wrench to be doing automotive work. I don't care what you're doing, it's smart to have a torque wrench on you. One of the key items that you're gonna need are your picks. Okay, you can go to Home Depot, you can go to Harbor Freight, you can go to Napa, you can go to any auto parts store and get your picks, okay? For this particular job, I use the round one, the hook pick, okay? And the reason why is because a lot of these hoses, when they've been on for a while, especially coolant hoses, have a tendency to stick. With this tool right here, you can basically stick it into the rubber just like that. You see which way the hook is pointing, okay? You stick it into the rubber like that, and you can work around the rubber like that and break it loose without punching a hole in it, okay? So make sure you get your automotive picks. You're gonna really want those. That's what I had to do with this hose and the other hose. So, with all that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and show you what's going on over here. And then I'll kind of show you where these hoses went. In case you didn't see my short that I posted up showing the configuration of the hoses, I'll go ahead and show you right now. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the camera off the tripod and bring you in a little closer to the engine compartment. So as you can see, I have it pretty much torn apart. Now all the way back in there, you can see that line right there. That's the intake for the turbo, okay? Because like I said, this black line right here was from that filter coming out of the air filter going into the turbo for the air intake system. Now it's pre-turbo, so that one had to be removed. And then this one right here is your aft turbo intake line, okay? Now this one goes all the way up, right up in here, all the way up to there. So you really got to pay attention to stuff like that. If you got to oil all your hose clamps and stuff, do it. So you can see my turbo, and this is why I actually say get the rags, okay? This is the aft turbo intake line, and this is the pre-intake turbo line. You can see I've got them covered up with the rags so I don't get any debris in there. And then right in here, that's where the alternator sits, okay? Right in there. You see that bridge right here? That piece, I'm literally gonna bump the light on it right there. That piece right there is where the bridge of the alternator goes in. Down there on the bottom, right there, right above that cooling line, that's your secondary anchor point for your alternator, okay? It's literally only got 2 bolts that go in it. So this other bolt down here on the bottom, right down there, you actually have to reach that from underneath, and you barely have any clearance to do it. That's where you're gonna need your deep socket for sure, okay? I did it with a normal ratchet. Torquing it's gonna be a little bit tricky because of the hose clamps, but I'll make it work. As for the wiring, you have your ground wire right here Okay, I hope you can see that somewhat decently. And then you have your battery positive right here. And then this right here was your original diode. Okay, now some alternators are one wires and they just produce power as they spin. This is for the alternators that require power to get kicked to it in order for it to kick the diode and start charging. So I honestly don't think this works, because if it did, they would have put the alternator in that required this plug circuit and I wouldn't have had any issues, at least with getting an alternator. But since they put a GM style one wire in, I'm just going to go ahead and put one of those in. But this hose right here for the pre-turbo goes just like that over there to that big fitting. And then this other line, it's pretty self-explanatory because of the way it looks, but it went up like that. Okay, so these can be a little bit of a pain in the butt to go ahead and, you know, install and remove, but you know, if you're mechanically inclined, you can handle it pretty well. But that's what I've got going on with replacing my alternator. It's a Sunday, so I figured if I'd get it all pulled out first thing Monday morning, I can go to the auto parts store and hopefully get a new one. And then I'd already have it prepped and ready to go ahead and put the new one in. So aside from that, remember, you're gonna want your pick tools. Okay, if you do any type of automotive work, hose changes, airbox changes, airline changes, anything like that, these tools, aside from a lot of other uses, really come in handy for that kind of stuff. But anyway, that's pretty much it. I'm gonna go ahead and get done and close this up now that I don't have to leave it open and all the work is out of the way and ready for tomorrow. So in the meantime, I'm gonna get going. You guys take care. Do me a favor, if you liked anything on this particular video, leave a like on it. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, I'd consider it. Like I said, I do a lot of stuff, and you know, it's not always automotive related. All right, so other than that, share it with a friend, and don't forget your notification bell. And there's one other thing that I forgot to go ahead and tell you about: the tensioner pulley. So real quick before I get off this video and let you guys go, there's a tensioner pulley right there, okay? And if you look right on the front of it, right, I know it's going to be really hard to see, but right there, okay, there's a little itty bitty square notch. That notch is so that you can put your 1/2-inch drive ratchet in it and pull the pulley to get it loose to get the belt off. All right, so I hope all that was helpful. You guys take care. I'll see you next time.